we got ourselves an 06 Dodge Magnum with a 2.7. I've got a code for misfire on cylinder 6, P0306. So it's an intermittent misfire. It's not a dead skip all the time, which means it's skipping all the time. It's more of an intermittent skip. So we're just going to go ahead on this vehicle. We got to pull the upper plenum to get to cylinder 6. So we're going to go ahead and replace number 6 coil pack. And then we're going to go ahead and do all 6 plugs. So we're going to show you how to do that. So first thing we got to do is we got to remove the air intake tube. So we got 8mm on the band clamp, and just pop these 2 clips, pop that off. Then your clip broke, your air intake temp sensor, and then so we'll get that out of the way. Undo the throttle body connector, map sensor connector, this actuator connector, and then we have obviously 10mm here, one there, and then we have the transmission dipstick comes up. There's a clip right here. It'll just pop out like so, and so obviously we got to remove our vent tube right there, and then we have EGR tube that comes in the back of the intake. Also, we got to do that. It just sits in there with a little rubber grommet, but it goes in about yay far, so it can be kind of a pain. Try not to bend and mess up that grommet as we come out. We also have 2 brackets on this side that you can't see right now. I'll show you here in a minute. You got 10mm that bolt to the top of the intake, and then a 13mm that bolts to the head on each of those 2 brackets. So we got to remove those brackets, or you can loosen them up and then swing them out of your way. But I normally just remove them, take them off, and just do away with them and don't put them back on, just because it adds extra support to the intake on this side. I've never seen it cause an issue over years and years and years of working on, the 3.5 motors are the same pretty much design as far as intake. They got the bracket over here also for the intake manifold. So I normally just leave them off. It's not a heavy intake, so there's not a lot of, I've never seen anything caused by leaving the brackets off. So we'll get started. These are the 2 brackets over here on this side. You got one here, 10mm. Like I said, bar goes down to the head. It's a 13 down there. And then we got the other one right there, 10mm at the top. And then, like I said, the bracket goes down to a 13mm. You can barely see it right there. But anyway, we're going to get them brackets off real quick and then work our intake out. All right, so I got the brackets on this side. Like I said, it's 10mm on the top. It's a stud that actually goes into the intake manifold. So that's the reason for you have to loosen up that bracket completely or either remove it. I used this. They're mountain. They're ratchet wrenches. They're longer ones. And so I really love these things. They're probably one of the best tools I want to say I've ever bought as far as hand tools wise. It used to be Easy Red. I think it was the first designer that came out with them, but they're ratcheting either way. And so on, off, and then the 2 different sizes, it comes in a set. But anyway, that's what I used to get 13s down there on the bottom that attach to the head. It was way easier to use these or use this ratchet wrench for that. So we also have your vacuum line that goes to the brake booster right here, and then another vacuum line right there. So we'll get those off, and then we'll see if we can move her on out. All right, so we got the 2 vacuum lines off there. Now I'll try to ease the intake up. Like I said, that EGR tube can sometimes be a pain, but just working it out with the transmission dipstick tube. Here we go. We out. And it looks like we have no grommet on the EGR tube. So we're going to have to get a grommet before we go back together with it. All right, so we got to do number 6 coil pack, which is this one right here. We're going to cover up the intake manifold, intake port holes there, and then we're going to get obviously a lot of this cleaned up, blown out real quick. But anyway, firing orders 135246 on this particular motor. So anyway, we're going to get the coil packs out. Is T30, so Torx, T30 Torx to get the coil packs out. We'll unplug them and then snatch the spark plugs out, and then get that coil pack replaced and get it cleaned up and get a EGR grommet and start going back together. All right, so I had 2 issues when pulling the coil packs out. One is this one right here. This happens sometimes with plastic valve covers or intake manifolds, depending on how the coil pack goes into it. It was so tight, I guess, from before, it ended up pulling the rivet out of the valve cover. So it's not a big deal. Do is just grab a pair of pliers right there and then undo the bolt from the insert. And then what we'll do is I use super glue. You can also use JB Weld if you want to mix it up or whatever, but most times super glue is just fine. So we'll take this insert off the bolt, super glue it, get it back in the valve cover right there, and then we'll be good with that. The only other issue I had on 2 of the coil packs was the end of the grommet here at the end of the actual coil pack, like this one. It ended up staying stuck down in there. So when I pulled the coil pack out, so most of the time you get it out with a pair of pliers, but if you end up messing it up like this one, I'm gonna have to replace another coil pack just because on these particular coil packs, you can't get just the rubber grommet at the end of it. So on a lot of the Fords, you can get the actual coil pack grommet and make a kit for them or whatever, so you can just replace those if they get swelled up or if they, end up being split or cracked or whatever. But anyway, so the other one came out just fine with a pair of pliers, didn't mess it up at all, but this one came out in a couple pieces on me, so I got to replace another coil pack. All right, we're on the other side. We've already did the passenger side spark plugs. Normally on Dodge Jeep Chrysler, I use Champion spark plugs. They didn't have any in stock at the parts store, so I got NGKs, which is a good substitute for Champions if you got to. In fact, that's actually what come out of it was NGKs. So somebody's obviously been in it before. The plugs actually don't look horrible. I mean, they're discolored, but as far as actual, wear on them or any kind of buildup, there's none. Normally, honestly, I probably would not replace these plugs, just because of, like I said, the intermittent skipping problem. But because having to pull the upper plenum is the reason why I'm just going ahead doing all 6 plugs. And then of course that coil pack on number 6 because it's under the intake manifold. So all right, we got our spark plugs in and our coil packs back in. We got this insert obviously super glued back in. We got our intake, our lower plenum wiped off, ready to go. We got our new grommet. I just lubed it up with some WD-40 or just whatever you have around. It's just something to kind of put just a little lube on it. And I got our intake, our upper plenum, I got the bottom of it wiped down to where it meets our seals right there. So we're going to get our intake back on and get it bolted back down. Make sure you go through, get your bolt started. That way you got everything lined up before you run them all the way down. Good to go. Plug our electrical connections back up. Our vacuum lines back up there. There. Map sensor. And put our air box. We'll be good to go.